Well, Hot Sauce Takes is back. If you don't know what Hot Sauce Takes is, we're gonna take you, the viewer, your hottest takes and put them in a video. On the weekend or on Friday, I make a community post where you can comment your hot sauce takes. There I take a couple, 4 or 5, and give you my reaction to a video. This is episode 22, and let's get right into it. Now the first take we're going to be looking at comes to us from Undefined Person, and he says, Scottie Barnes will be the best player in the 2021 draft. There are some good players in the draft, but Scottie will be better than all of them. On draft night, it was quite a surprise when the Raptors selected Scottie Barnes 4th overall over someone like Jalen Suggs. At the time, Scottie was seen as the next Draymond Green, who didn't score the most, but made the little plays and was elite at passing and defense. But so far in the NBA, Scottie has exceeded everyone's expectations and is currently averaging 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists on 52% shooting, and is currently at least the top 2 of Rookie of the Year. He's been one of my favorite rookies this year, and he just has so much talent on both ends. For a lot of people, they see a lot of Kawhi Leonard or Giannis Antetokounmpo in Scottie, which I can't personally see. Now, let's not give Scottie that expectation to be the next Kawhi or the next Giannis, but he has the talent. He has the freakish athleticism. He has the basketball IQ. He has just the instincts. And yes, he's raw, but his form is looking good for his jump shots. He's aggressive around the rim. He's a good passer. He's looking like a good leader. He's embracing the city of Toronto. And those traits can be super essential to make a superstar in the NBA. However, this whole draft class is also looking elite. Cade Cunningham is getting his feet wet in the NBA, and just a couple nights ago had one of his best games. Jalen Green has showed spurts where he can be a potential 30-point per game scorer, high 20-point per game scorer, especially when he dropped 30 points against the Celtics. Evan Mobley, I think, is right now the top of the Rookie of the Year, and even though there weren't high expectations for him, he's been so good on both ends. Watching that Laker game, he guarded Anthony Davis pretty well and held his own against some really small guards, and still on offense, his shots looking pretty good. His playmaking has also been really good. Where you have such good playmakers in Ricky Rubio, Darius Garland, feeding him the ball in the pick and roll, and he's making the correct pass to Jared Allen in the paint, like someone in the corner. And I've been super impressed with Evan Mobley. Even got Josh Giddey, who's also been looking so impressive. Chris Duarte, who's also a really good player. And I think it definitely is possible to Scottie to end up as one of the best players in this draft, but maybe top 3 is more realistic. I think this draft class can end up as one of the best in NBA history, and I think Scottie can be a big part of the reason, but there's still people like Cade, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley. Even Jalen Suggs hasn't been what we expected, which I think Jalen Suggs can be better than he is now. You have someone like Josh Giddey who has talent. Jonathan Kuminga still has a lot of talent. And I think Scottie's ceiling is so high, and he's definitely a cornerstone of this Raptors franchise. The next take we're going to be looking at comes to us from Jimmy, and he says, Tyler Herro will win the 6th Man of the Year award. Herro has had quite a polarizing career for a while now. He was doubted in college, but he was excellent in his rookie season, of course breaking out in the bubble, where he was the youngest person to ever start in an NBA Finals game. And in the playoffs, he showed this confidence and swagger that he had, that he backed up with his play. And in his second season, Herro had pretty high expectations to break out as an all-star caliber player, but he underperformed. Yes, his stats were a bit higher, but his efficiency was worse, and especially in the playoffs, he was pretty much unplayable and was pretty much playing 5 minutes, 10 minutes a game, which we didn't expect after such a good rookie season. But this year, he's been averaging 20 points per game off the bench after having a baby and having lesser expectations. Him catching fire off the bench has been a big reason why the Heat are so good. And I think that with him breaking out with Victor Oladipo coming back, this Heat team can be really scary. If the NBA season ended today, I would personally give Tyler Herro the 6th Man of the Year award, but it's still early. But it's really good to see the improvement that Tyler Herro has shown. Just last year, his work ethic was called into question. He was partying in Miami instead of working on his game. But he's really shown that he has improved his game. In so many games, he's getting the same looks that he got from last year, but he's making them at a more consistent level, which is pretty much because of his work ethic. He's working harder, trying to improve his craft, which is so good and he's only like 21 years old, and he can definitely be, alongside Bam Adebayo, a cornerstone of this franchise. And this Heat team can be really scary. Nobody expected Tyler Herro to be this good, and there is still a potential dark horse contender. And with Tyler Herro potentially breaking out as a top 6 Man of the Year candidate, that's definitely a good sign for the present and the future. The next take we're going to be looking at comes to us from Sports Wiz, and he says, the Atlanta Hawks' second half run from last year was a fluke, and they're really a 500 team with Trae Young as their only star. The Hawks have made one of the best rebuilds in modern history, transitioning from a playoff team with Al Horford, Paul Millsap, Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, to having a young superstar in Trae Young. They paired up Trae with good young pieces in John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, while also having a lot of vets in Bogdan Bogdanovic, Gallinari, Clint Capella, and last year they started rolling in the second half. Even when they were not favored in the playoffs, they beat the Knicks and 76ers in 7-game series. 5 games against the Knicks and 7 games in the 76ers. And this year, there are quite high expectations for them to break out as potential top 3 seed. Most of their young core can improve from last year after getting playoff experience. That can really help just a young team's in development, and maybe they can take the next stride. But this year, the Hawks just aren't looking good at all and are starting only 4-9. Now, it is still the early season, so they can change it around. Like last year, they started off slow, and look where they ended up in the Eastern Conference Finals. But the Hawks currently haven't found the balance between developing their young players and winning. But I still think that they can turn it around. There's just so much talent on this team, and especially young talent that I think can improve. I think they can turn it around this season and still be a playoff contender that no contender wants to face in the playoffs. And maybe they're just going to be like the Heat last year. They have a good playoff run, and then they take like 1 year off where they aren't as good, but the next year they're really good. Now, just think about their team. It's so young, with Trae Young maybe taking another step, John Collins taking another step maybe, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, Kevin Huerter, Onyeka Okongwu, even him, might take a big leap that can really help this franchise just maybe become a championship contender. Now, it's definitely not, I wouldn't say it's the end of the world for the Hawks, but it still is kind of concerning. I still think that to win a championship, you need to have at least 2 stars. Maybe that can be Onyeka Okongwu, maybe that can be John Collins, or maybe it's none of their young players on their team, and that's definitely a concern. They still have a lot of young pieces, so that can be used in a trade. They have a couple of picks, and I think that this Hawks team's future is still one of the best in the NBA, and you can't doubt the Hawks because they just have a slow start, I think, and I think they can still turn it around, and maybe in a couple weeks the whole story will be totally different. And finally, the last take we're going to be looking at comes to us from Jay Heem, and he said the Chicago Bulls will end up as a top 4 seed. The Bulls were starting off scorching, but recently they've kind of slowed down, dropping back-to-back games against Philly and losing to the Warriors last night. But still, there's so much promise with this team. DeMar has been pretty much their best player, and he's just been so impressive as a potential MVP candidate. Now, he's not going to win it because everyone knows that DeMar DeRozan is not an MVP level player, but his stats, if you just see his stats and the records team, I think he has a case for being top 5 in MVP. Their depth has been there with Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu, Derek Jones Jr., Tony Bradley. They've all just helped their bench to also pair up with the starters in Zach LaVine, Lonzo, DeMar, Vooch, and Patrick Williams getting hurt, which was definitely a big loss. And even with Zach struggling recently because of a thumb injury and just Vooch not playing well, it's still impressive how good they've been with all of these struggles. And I still think that the Bulls aren't like their full strength. Vooch can be better. Now I know he's in protocol, but hopefully he can come back soon. Zach is slowly getting back to what we know Zach LaVine can be, and their defense has just been so impressive. Nobody expected this defense to be so good, but they're locking up teams at a consistent level. Billy Donovan has been an excellent coach this year, and this Bulls team is definitely really scary. Now, will they be a top 4 seed? I'm not sure. I think that they will be a playoff team, but just the East is so tight. You have the Nets coming back, the Sixers, we're not sure how they are. The Bucks are still there. The Wizards are looking so good. And I think that they can be a top 4 seed, but I think Bulls fans would be happy if they end up at least in the playoffs. And in a playoff series, just like the Hawks, you don't want to face the Chicago Bulls. So that being said, that's going to be the end of Hot Sauce Takes. Make sure to like the video, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe, and I'll see you on next time.